Africa. Welcome to Chat Night. Chat Night Africa. Welcome to Chat Night. We bring you good vibe. We shine on the light. Welcome to Chat Night. We bring you good vibe. We shine on the light. We all over the world. Chat Night Africa. We all over the world. Chat Night Africa. Welcome to Chat Night. We bring you good vibe. We shine on the light. Welcome to Chat Night. We bring you good vibe. We shine on the light. We all over the world. Chat Night Africa. We all over the world. Chat Night Africa. Welcome to Chat Night, the only place that we give you good vibes. Chat Night Africa.
Chat Night Africa. Let's gang up, change mindset, and empower Africans. Are you ready? Africa to the world.
And now, live from the headquarters of Chat Night Africa, Divine Champion.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Voices of Africa at Chat Night. For a long time, the people of Southern Cameroon's complaint of marginalization by the successive Francophone-dominated centralized governments in the nation's capital, Yaoundé. Those in opposition largely articulated the force of argument over the argument of force. Since 2017, it became the argument of force in apparent response to government's crackdown on teachers and lawyers peacefully protesting in the streets. Today, life is a nightmare in the Anglophone regions of the country. Eyewitness accounts on the ground talk of beheadings, kidnappings for ransom, rape, schools closed, whole villages burnt down, and summary executions. According to human rights organizations, these atrocities are perpetrated by both the government forces and those fighting for what they call restoration of independence. This week on Voices of Africa, we invited some well-known speakers who have the ability to engage in vigorous but respectful conversation. The armed conflict in Anglophone Cameroon, 5 years down the road. And my panelists today include Dr. Ben Akih, who will defend the views of those who believe in a federated Cameroon. We have Mr. Attoh Moutchia, who is the moderator of the Southern Cameroon's International Town Hall. He will be defending the views of Ambazonia. We will also have Barrister Julius Achu, who believes in Cameroon in its current form, unitary state. Chat Night Africa believes that for people to make informed decisions, they should be exposed to a wide range of sources. I said reasoned choices instead of acting out of ignorance, emotions, or misinformation. Disclaimers. When this content was conceived, we invited Mr. Bo Herbert on account of his brilliance, oratory, and passion on the subject. He agreed without preconditions. That's why we announced his name publicly. At the last minute, Mr. Bo Herbert gave us conditions for his participation, which we deemed unacceptable. That said, Chat Night Africa holds in great esteem or high esteem our colleague journalist, Mr. Bo Herbert. Disclaimer. Chat Night Africa is not sponsored by any government or any pressure group. As a matter of fact, much as we need assistance to perfect the platform, if anybody offers us assistance with strings attached, that assistance will be turned down immediately. Ladies and gentlemen, now we begin. And the first person to take my question is Dr. Ben Akih. Dr. Ben Akih, thank you for accepting to appear on our platform. We believe fiercely in the independence of journalism. We thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chamukong, for this invitation and also for creating this kind of platform for civil exchange of ideas. And I really commend your effort in the course of this conflict. You have provided consistently the opportunity for people to express themselves in a cordial but yet a passionate manner, because the matter that is before us is one that is very serious.
Dr. Ben Akih, the struggle or the fight for the restoration of independence is now 5 years down the road. What's your assessment, sir?
My assessment is that this has been a failure on the part of the people of West Cameroon, and they stand in a situation where they can be humiliated, even though the grievances that drove them to go to the street, these grievances are real, they are historical, but they need to be solved in a manner that responds to the principles of constitutional government. And therefore, the point we have now to address is the fact that our people are suffering. Our people in the regions of Northwest and Southwest, what as a federalist I call West Cameroon, or the former British Southern Cameroon, I refer to it as West Cameroon Federated State in the Cameroon Federation. The conflict has been pushed in a direction where today we end up seeing that the separatists and the supporters of the unitary state, they are collaborating to prolong the suffering of our people. And therefore, the Federalists must stand up and say that it is time for us to recognize that the unitary state and separation are unconstitutional from the perspective of the contract of our reunification. And further, if we seek to restore the Federation of Cameroon, Cameroon is a federation taken hostage by the people who support the unitary state. But if we seek to restore that constitutional order, which is federalism, we cannot do so by pretending to pass through the threat of separation. That threat of separation has been costly, has been very damaging, and has left very lasting impact, negative impact in the regions of Northwest and Southwest. It is time for us to come to that realization that we cannot obtain that federalism through separation, or independence cannot be obtained, because from the perspective of the contract of our reunification, separation and the unitary state are unconstitutional.
Thank you, Dr. Ben Akih, for firing the first shot. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now bring on the platform for his opening remarks. Each participant will be responding to the same opening question. Now, here is the representative for Ambazonia. He's not, I want to say, make sure everybody understands this. He doesn't represent all currents of Ambazonia or within the Ambazonia movement or the struggle movement. However, he is an important voice in the struggle. Join me now in welcoming Mr. Attoh Moutchia, who is the president, who is the moderator of the moderator of the Southern Cameroon's International Town Hall. Thank you, Mr. Attoh Moutchia, for accepting to come on the platform one more time.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Divine Chamukong. It's always a pleasure I feel like a resident guest of your show, and I am honored to be considered worthy of this platform. Thank you very much.
We are 5 years down the road of this conflict. What's your assessment of it, sir?
My assessment is that there is a determination. I am impressed by the fact that the concerns of those who are not for the total restoration of the independence of Southern Cameroons is not so much about the justification in the cause for independence, but more with the peripheral and collateral consequences that come with war. Is war an option? Yes. Is it the option we would have liked? No. If we had a constitutional government or a reasonable government, maybe they would have done what the Canadians did in Quebec, give the people a referendum. Maybe they would have done what the UK did in Scotland, give the people the choice of a referendum. There is nothing in our Constitution of 1961 that abrogated the rights of a people to their natural right to self-determination. It was what the United Nations mandated the UK to do, prepare us for self-determination or independence. There is nothing in that constitution that says that we forfeited the right to revisit the Union. The Union has failed. The partner is a failed state. Even Dr. Munzu, has said on several occasions that the moment La République reverted to La République, they too lost the right to that federated state because they were La République before the federation. And once you breach a contract, that contract is void. It is not enforceable. So we have a right to revisit that contract because it was voided. The terms of the agreement were never honored, and we never forfeited our rights to revisit the kind of government we want for ourselves.
Thank you, Mr. Attoh Moutchia, the moderator of the Southern Cameroon's International Town Hall. And ladies and gentlemen, I am sure you're waiting to hear how somebody defends what looks or sounds in a lot of ears as indefensible. Join me now in welcoming Barrister Julius Achu, live from Cameroon. Your audio isn't coming. Maybe you have to unplug your earphone and put it back. Time for me to go over to Mr. Moutchia to ask him a follow-up. Mr. Moutchia, if you were running for elections, you talked about referendum. I guess one of the questions your opponent will be asking is, are we better off today than we were yesterday? Would you say, and looking at what's happening on ground zero, would you say that the denizens of the Southern Cameroons are better off now, 5 years down the road of the struggle, than they were before 2016, sir?
We cannot make an assessment midstream. It's like asking a woman who is in labor, is she better off with the pain than she was before she got pregnant? Wait and ask her when the baby is born, how joyful she feels. We cannot make that assessment now if we are better off or not. What we know is that what we envisage is to be in a place where we will be better off than we are or than we were before 2017 when Paul Biya declared war on us. That's the vision.
Well, you know what the reality on the ground is, do you?
Yes.
I would like you to respond. I would like you to respond whether people are better off now or they were before 2016, before the war started?
Again, it is not about where the people are. The people are, there's a war going on, just like in the Ukraine. Why are they fighting? Because they don't want to continue, they don't want to be subjugated. So your question technically is that, are the people better off today? No, they are not. They are still where they were. They are still subjugated. They are still oppressed. They are still second-class citizens. They are killed willy-nilly. There are no consequences. They are no better off today than they were before. No.
Thank you, sir. Let me bring up now, live from Cameroon, Barrister Julius Achu, before we bring the other panelist. I hope his audio now comes across.
Is it better now?
Yes,
Hello?
sir. We're hearing you now. It's 5 years down the road since this war broke out. How do you come to defend the existence of a unitary state? What are your arguments, sir?
First of all, I'm a lawyer by profession, and I like legality. You see, way back sometimes when I was not even born, this country decided to be reunited, and we lived in it for the past close to 60 years. We had a federated state that was transformed in 1972, and in 1984 became a republic. The shocking thing is that in all of these legal instruments that were put together to bring the country as it is, nobody, as I say, has legally challenged the legality of what has brought this country together to be one. Anyway, let's not go back too much in history, because if we have to go to history, we'll have to take Cameroon back to 1884, and we'll be always contesting until 1884 or before and after. But in any case, what is happening now in this country is a total mess. We have taken a noble cause and rubbed it in mud. Yes, the Anglophones were not feeling satisfied with the system as it is. But is it taking up guns to kill fellow Anglophones, to kill ourselves, to frighten each other from coming near to each other, that will give us the independence we are looking for? I say no. What we've done is encouraging those living in the Anglophone zone to move over to the Francophone zone. What is happening? It is some sort of an exodus. And when once Anglophones leave the Anglophone zone to come to the Francophone zone, they will stay here and never to go back. Just imagine the effect. They're going to have kids here. They're going to build their families here. They're going to build their businesses here. And they'll see no reason to go back to where they started their lives. Let's say Maminda or Kumba, whatever. But what are the consequences? At the end of the day, go down 10 years from today, this myth about Anglophone will disappear. Whether you like it or not, it is because of the modus operandi of those who have taken up arms. You know, first of all, I'm a Democrat. I would like to respect somebody's opinion. But when somebody's opinion goes beyond and above the limit of his own liberty and affects my own, then there's something wrong about that. And when something wrong about that, nothing else can be right. That is why, if you notice, in our Anglophone zone is a dead zone. Life doesn't seem to be what you and me used to know about. And the problem is that those on the ground, they don't have the same feeling like those who live abroad. Because those who live abroad, they are in some comfort zone. They don't give a damn what is happening here. They live on hearsay, but the day they will come to the ground themselves to find out what is going on, they will realize that they made a big mistake. Let's not mince words. Anglophones are not happy in the country they have found themselves. But how do we go about it? How do we go about to sort out this issue? Our parents never took up guns to reunite this country. Why should we be the ones who take up guns to divide it? And do you think it's possible? In any case, what we are noticing is that this so-called separatist movement that started in 2016 started as an Anglophone problem. But it is now been dissociated from the Anglophone problem now to an Ambazonian problem. I don't know where Ambazonia came from, but well, guys decided to call themselves Ambazonians. That is their right. They can call themselves anything. But it is now different from the Anglophone problem. The Amazon problem, we have to distinguish between the Amazonian problem and the Anglophone problem. They are two different things. With us Anglophones, we're built like gentlemen. We believe in the force of argument and not the argument of force. And once we want to try to use the argument of force, we always fail because it's well planned, ill-timed, and poorly executed. It cannot work. What they're doing can never work. It's going to bring more suffering to you and me.
I got your point. I'm going to bring up Mr. Attoh Moutchia so that you can crossfire. He will ask you some questions, you respond and ask him some questions. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Mr. Attoh Moutchia, who is the moderator of the Southern Cameroon's International Town Hall. Gentlemen, I give you 4 minutes or 3 minutes to ask each other questions and get answers. You go first, Mr. Moutchia.
First, I would like to greet Barrister Julius Achu. Happy to meet you for the first time on this panel. I don't know if I have questions. I want to make one thing very clear, that I am not supporting the brigands and the collaterals, some of it, most of it, engineered by La République. Very obviously, I am not supporting that. I understand that in war, there is always a mess. What I am focused on is the cause of the people. Do they have just cause in seeking independence? Even in Iraq, we know the famous Abu Ghraib prison situation, where the U.S. had to withdraw some of its soldiers and court-martial them. We know a U.S. soldier who shot a kid in Iraq, and it almost fled up the entire Middle East. And he was court-martialed. He is now serving time. Still serving time. I think he was given about 10 years or so in the U.S. So we saw the AU force in Central Africa, where there was abuse even by blue berets. So these are the collateral of war. But I am focused on the cause of the war. People are suffering in Ukraine. But why are they fighting? That's my focus. There is just cause, regardless of what anybody can tell me about constitutions. There is no constitution that abrogates people's natural rights. And Barrister can correct me if I am wrong. From what I have read, the people have a natural right. We were a distinct country with international borders who were never challenged in 1954 when we left Enugu. Nobody denied that we were not an independent people. La République got its independence 1st of January 1960. Nobody challenged us as an independent people. 1st of October, we got our independence simultaneously with a federation. The terms of that federation for over 60 years have been abused. Biya himself admitted in front of the international community that there was a plan to assimilate us. We never have given up that right. A federation does not mean that we forfeited our right as an independent, distinct nation and state and people, as recognized by the UN when we were given as a trust territory to the UK. We never abrogated that right. And all we are saying is that after 60 years, we wanted to peacefully resolve these differences when the lawyers and the teachers started this. In 2017, the military became high-handed. Students were raped in Boya, beaten, people were killed. Are we supposed to stay quiet because of a constitution which the government itself does not respect its own constitution for 60 years, did not respect the 1961 constitution? You as a lawyer know that that 1972 thing was against the 1961 constitution. Why didn't you people stand up then? Since you're so strong about the constitution, why didn't you stand up in 1972 and put your foot down and tell Amadou Ayijo, no, this is in violation of the 1961 constitution? That's my question to the attorney. Maybe not you, but your profession, since you're now a member of that body. If you had stood up in 72, we would not be where we are today. So you cannot blame it on us.
Mr. Moutchia, Moutchia, it's a pleasure talking to you and having this exchange.
Thank you.
I actually commend Mr. Chairman for having organized this panel, because it is high time we talk to each other and not fight each other. But in any case, if I have to take you back to 1972, you should understand that the only way you can legally change a constitution is by way of a referendum. So it doesn't matter what type of constitution was written as a federal constitution, but insofar as the people at a given point in time decide that, look, we're going to change this clause or that clause of the constitution, and they vote in favor of changing, there's nothing you and me can do about it. You have the right to challenge it, but you challenge it in the right circles, or you go to some courts that can entertain such a matter. But nobody has done that since 1972. And please, it's not correct to be crying over spilled milk. The milk has been spilled. Should we be crying over it? You talk about war. Please, I've worked all my life in war-torn areas too. I know a little bit about it. What we are having west of the Mongo is not war. It is hide and seek, kidnapping or killing each other, hurting each other, closing our businesses, shooting our own legs. And you tell me that that's what people think a way of going to get independence? My brother, I will say, no, it's not possible. You are instead making a noble cause look dirty, very, very dirty. The Anglophones have a noble clause to ask that, please, we would like to be on our own. But that's not the way you should go about it, because that's not how we came into it. Don't forget that Southern Cameroon was a decentralized state run by Britain as a trusted territory through Nigeria by indirect rule. So we had a territory, yes. We had a government, yes. But we were managed by Britain as a trustee over you and me. We are about getting the same situation by this, what they call decentralization. That's why some people like me, I would like to say, look, let's get in this thing and reinforce it to get our powers back. Because let me tell you something. No gun will ever give you power. God will always give you only anguish, hatred, vexation, and revenge. The only way we can go through this thing is through a ballot box. No matter what it takes, it's only a ballot box that has determined anything in this world as it is. Guns, no way. You can't do it through guns. You see, my brother.
Mr. Moutchia, do you have, please keep your intervention short so that we can bring in many more. And of course, we'll be taking phone calls. Mr. Moutchia, 1 minute to respond.
Well, what I'm going to respond again, I more than anybody, or I amongst a few, have vehemently condemned kidnapping. We have condemned what the AGOVC is doing. We've called them out. We've condemned what the ADF is doing. We've condemned the kidnappings in Bui, Wainama. We have condemned all of that. We have spoken out for the lawyers who are being targeted. That is wrong. But again, I am not here to defend malfeasance during war. Yes, it is war, but that is what La République declared. What the barrister is refusing to acknowledge is that Biya rolled his army to use force to oppress and quell. Even the lawyers were beaten. They were dragged in the mud. What are you talking about? Was that peaceful? No. Students were killed. Was that peaceful? No. Were we supposed to fold our hands and be oppressed? I want the barrister to tell me one dictator, one tyrant in Africa who has gone from dictatorship to democracy and listen to the will of the people. I want the barrister to tell me of the 86 or 89 constitution, which even they, the Francophones, were saying Paul Biya did not implement the decentralization. What makes him think that the penal code in Cameroon is your government respecting its own penal code? No. So why should we expect that anything is going to come out of it?
Okay, he will have 1 minute to answer, then we'll bring up Dr. Ben Akih.
Thank you.
What I can say is that if you sit on your rights, you only have yourself to be blamed. If you think that somebody has done a wrong, which is penally punishable or criminally punishable, and you sit on those rights, then you get yourself all wrong. You do the wrong things and continue in the same light, and at the end of the day, no two wrongs will ever make a right. That's the way what I'm talking about. If you feel that Mr. Biya has done something wrong, you use the proper means, not guns. Okay, you say Mr. Biya declared guns, declared the war. Do you mean to tell me that Anglophones are not in the army? That you call Mr. Bia's army? Do you mean to tell me that only Francophones are in that same army fighting Anglophones? Is that what you want to tell me? Please, no. Look, let's not send wrong signals. In any case, I heard the speech that President Bia made. He was not declaring war. He said he was going in for criminals that killed his soldiers. You are a commander-in-chief. You come back to your country and they tell you that they've killed 4 your policemen and 2 military men, and you are a commander-in-chief. What do? You first of all, you have to say, the guys who have done that are criminals. I'm going to go for them. You people call it war. Okay, we know what war is all about. Is that war going on in Anglophone Cameroon? I will say no, it is not. Because war means, what does that mean? War is an exchange of guns or shooting or fighting between 2 competing armies. Is that what's going on? I will say no. You just get guys who stay in the bush, they jump out with guns, come once in a while in the town, they shoot in the air, they shoot civilians, they shoot you and me, and they kidnap 1 or 2 people and rush back to the bush. Is that what you call war?
Your point has been taken, sir. Dr. Ben Akih, I put you on the platform with Barrister Julius Achu because lots of people, when they listen to you, Federalist, they say you and those who support unitary state are pieces of the same cloth. Where do you differ with Barrister Julius Achu?
Those who say that Federalists are, in fact, representing the same position as unitary state, they do not understand what federalism is all about. Granted, there may be different versions that people put out about federalism, but federalism is about constitutional government and the rule of law. I'm happy that Barrister Achu brought up this idea of the constitution and the rule of law. But when he went to defend his position, he went into a political discussion, running away from the constitution and trying to suggest that the referendum in 1972 had any constitutional force. It was a coup d'etat. It was a constitutional violation. And that is why we Federalists, we are very different from the unitary state supporters. We're different from the separatists because the position of the Federalists is that even right now, Cameroon is a federation. It is taken hostage by some fanatics of unitary state. Let us begin with the Constitution of 1961. Article 2 of that Constitution says the sovereignty of the people of Cameroon is vested in the people of Cameroon. They can exercise that sovereignty through elected officials or through a referendum. But no section of the Cameroonian nation, no individual can take upon themselves the right to exercise that sovereignty. And if we look at the way the politics of Cameroon was run, even from 1961 to the present day, a certain segment of the people of Cameroon has decided to arrogate upon themselves the sovereignty that belongs to all of us Cameroonians. Elections mean nothing in this. Let us start, first of all, that Article 2, it suppresses the Francophone majority from using the tyranny of the majority to impose its will on the minority. It also takes it away from the president to tyrannize the people, to begin to implement what he thinks is the will of the people without the proper authority. Now, how did President Ahidjo violate that Article 2? So we are saying that Ahidjo, the president of Cameroon, and the Francophone majority took upon themselves to violate or to express the sovereignty of all Cameroonians by imposing a referendum. This is so because Article 47.1, it forbids the termination of the federation. The Cameroon Federation was not to be changed. It goes further in Article 47.3 to say that the proper mechanism for amending the Constitution is by a bill in Parliament, which must secure majority from the 2 federated states. So the West Cameroon Federal State and Federated State and the East Cameroon Federated State must vote in majority to approve a particular idea. So this idea of changing from the federation to the unitary state violates, first of all, 47.1 because it tries to terminate the federation. It violates 47.3 because it bypasses parliament and tries to amend the constitution. Now it supposes to be expressing the sovereignty of the people by choosing the Francophone majority. That means even if the West Cameroonians voted 100% against the change to the unitary state, the majority Francophone would already have made that vote to pass. But they had no chance even to express that, because when you look at elections in Cameroon from 1961 up to 1992, when Frondi won the election, challenged and won the election, when you look at that trajectory, you will see that consistently it's a one-party system. It forces people to go to the polls, but the polls produce the result that the government wants. You tend to have 98% participation, and the result is always 99.98. That's the result of the referendum. And how can you believe that referendum when the people who brought us into Cameroon, people like Foncha, people like Von Mokete, they were locked up because they were opposing that transition from the federation to the unitary state? So we are dealing here with banditry, where the state decided to step out of the constitutional order and take the federation captive. And that is where we are today. The Cameroon Federation is in prison, is taken captive by the fanatics of the unitary state, and it is time for them to come out of that illegality and embrace the federation again. So I wonder if the barrister, as a specialist in interpretation of the law, I wonder if he can say how these three articles are not violated by that act in 1972. Clearly, the way we should go about it is to use non-violent direct action of civilians to make sure that Cameroon government steps out of that illegality.
Barrister Julius Achu, you respond.
Yeah, I'm surprised that since 1972, it is in 2022 that Dr. Akih is talking about it. Yeah, the people are sovereigns. If the people can be stupid, they can be foolish. But once they decide to take the decision in a referendum, it is more than the constitution. So don't limit people. People are not below the constitution, they are above the constitution. And that's what happened in 1972. You are talking about Chief Bukete and the others who were arrested, as you say. I don't know about that, but you are telling me. But in which, where I know during our times, when you and me became majors, where were they? They were in for a unity state. Why? I've never seen you say something to the contrary, or no, the other person you quoted. But let me remind you something, that in 1972 we had leaders, and our leaders were for the referendum, and it was organized the way it was organized. I was not there, you were not there either, I think. But it took a decision. Until date, apart of us coming to run our mouths on TV or on programs, nobody has legally challenged the 1972 referendum. We always say it is banditry, it is thievery, it is whatever, but nobody, as I'm saying to this date, has challenged it. But you see, the world has to evolve. You cannot stay on one fact and you think you'll live on it. It's like, right these days, they see you using a typewriter. Meanwhile, there's a computer with easy hands, easy way of manipulating the keyboard. We have to move on. Something was done. Our parents maybe were foolish, or they were stupid, they were misled, or they were outplayed. But you and me should learn from that to know how to do it better. It's not sitting by and complaining and be angry, which will help you and me. Let's get into it. The way of knowing what happens in the elephant is getting to the ear. No matter how big the elephant is, as you get to the ear, the elephant will listen to what you're going to say.
Your point has been taken, sir. Thank you, sir. I'm going to bring up Mr. Moutchia to debate Dr. Ben Akih. I'm very sure, I have no illusions about his disagreements with you, Dr. Ben Akih. Now, we have on the platform the moderator of the Southern Cameroon's International Forum, International Town Hall. Mr. Moutchia, you definitely are on opposite directions with Dr. Ben Akih. Dr. Ben Akih has pointed out what he thinks are illegalities in what the Ambazona movement is doing. I'd like him to ask you the question and you respond. Dr. Ben Akih, you have word.
Thank you very much also for making it possible for me to exchange with my brother here. I have watched their forum from time to time. They create an opportunity for people to exchange views in a civil manner. But this is the problem. They are not as passionately connected to the fate of our people who are suffering. Violence has entered into our community because of the things that they are experimenting. And what I want to ask you here, first of all, let me declare that I'm a Canadian. I'm also a Canadian citizen. When we use jurisprudence that we make up on the fly to justify the improvisation that we are doing to fight a very, very technical fight, are we not misleading our people? You have mentioned Canada here, that they gave the Quebec people the right to carry out that referendum. This is misinformation. Yes, there has been two referenda in Quebec in 1980 and in 1995. Both of them did not get the majority support of the Quebecers. The question was whether they should approach the government of Canada in order to separate. But what you do not tell the people in Cameroon is that in 1998, the people of Canada referred to the Supreme Court of Canada through a mechanism they call a reference question. They put a reference question to the Supreme Court to figure out whether the Parliament of Canada or any region in Canada has the right to unilaterally secede from the Federation. And then the second question was whether international law forbids the government of Canada from preventing any group that wants to break away. And then the third question was, in case there is a conflict between domestic law and international law on the question of secession, which law is important? The judgment from the Supreme Court was that no region has the right to unilaterally secede from the Federation of Canada. That's number one. Number two was that the international system does not give any right to any constituent part of a country to break away from the central government. It is an internal problem. And therefore, the third question needed no comment from the Supreme Court. When we talk to our people, knowing the suffering that they have gone through, we have to be very clear. It is constitutional democracy that will bring us the victory of restoring the federation. The reunification was binding, and what we need to do now is to make sure we come to the federation. It is clear that if you want separation, you can fight a war. If you win the war, constitution has no bearing. International law has no bearing. You rewrite the law. Are you willing now to tell our people that they have to be prepared for 20 years, 30 years of experiment with a war of independence? If you are not willing to say that, you cannot dissociate yourself from the kidnappings, from the ransom, from the brutal killing, and from this suffering that continues to plague our people. Are you willing to tell the people that we are in for separation? Don't worry about the pain you're going through now. It will be all beautiful because in 20 years, we would, through the power of the gun, secure our independence. Can you make that promise to them? If you cannot make that promise, it's rational for you to realize that the Federalists are the only ones making a reasonable defense of the rights of the people of West Cameroon. That is former Southern Cameroon.
Okay. First, before I answer Dr. Ben Akih, I'm happy to be on this panel with you, and I want to thank you for the eloquent argument or position you took. And I noticed that Barrister Julius Achu didn't answer your question. He says the people have the right to do anything, but it's about a structure and laws and guidance. Yes, the people can do anything, but what does the law say? And he doesn't answer that. I asked him a similar question, and he said the people can do anything, as if people operate in a vacuum. So first, thank you for that brilliant position you took. Now, to the answer of your question, if I can tell the people, I have noticed that we don't have a lot of differences where we come and where you are. We believe in the Constitution. we believe in law and order. What we have come to the realization after 60 years is that with this French vassal state, it will be impossible for us to even get the federation. And what people who hold the federalist position, as you do not tell our people is that our people have been killed for 60 years fighting for federation. A lot of our early people were eliminated. We had brains who were eliminated, died young men in their 40s, in their early 50s, by systematic, cleansing by the French. And what has happened now is that the younger generation have taken it upon themselves, and there are now so many that what was possible in the 60s and 70s by taking people out one by one cannot hold today. If you start one by one, by the time you get to 1,000, it will be 100 years. So now it's done massive. But Federalists always scare the people by that. There is a war for 20, 30 years. Are you ready to fight for 20, 30 years and the cost of war? Without giving us a figure of that cost of war. I'm going to ask you, how long was the American War of Independence? Did the Americans fight the British for 20, 30 years? Where do you guys get this thing that a war of independence is 20, 30 years? Yes, in Sudan it was 20, 30 years. But how long was it in the US? Maybe 4 years, I think. And they won, right? So you cannot assume that we are going to fight for 20, 30 years. It is going to take war because the Federalists for 62 years have not even shown us a peaceful pathway. And the French and Francophones have shown us systematic use of brutal force to suppress. They did it to the Bamile case. They did it to the Northerners after 1984. It is the script. It is done in every French colony in Africa. The use of force, suppression, killing, and what have you. And when they go to the UN to bring cases against these dictators, of course, the French veto everything that would affect their grip on the people. So we are fighting because we 2016 started peacefully. We are not against what happened in 2016. We asked for the federation before 2016 till 2016. It was not until we could not take the killings and they were coming at us the way they went against the Bamile case, again the way they went against the Northerners, and we realized that if we stayed silent, these people were going to massacre us. Again, I am asking the question, a historical fact, which dictator in Africa, which Biya is, has ever switched from tyranny to democracy? How are you federalists? Because Dieudonné Somba himself, a Betty Bulu man, has asked that question from people like you and even his own opposition people. How are you going to get them out of Etudi? How are you? Barrister Julius was saying that nobody has challenged it. Of course, the Banjul ruling was, which Professor Ayangwe was one of the lawyers. He's been to the town hall. He's laid out that case several times. There have been court actions recognizing us. But the implementation is what is impossible. And you federalists have not proven to us how you're going to even get to what you want. It's impossible. So my question to you is, how do you plan on achieving federalism given the 60-year record of a government that does not even want to hear about it and killed us for asking?
Okay, you give me a chance to respond, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question. I think it's clear now that you see that war is a component. And if we said in 2017 that you might take 5 years of war, you would have said no. But I already said then that this war would take 20 to 30 years. At least you now see that that war has taken about 5 years. That's the topic of this discussion we're having now. The answer is that around the world, the principle of nonviolent direct action based on the principle of constitutional rule and rule of law is more powerful than any dictator. It has shown if you can mobilize 3% of the population to go down on the street to represent an idea that has majority support, it is impossible to stop that. Even in Africa, we have seen Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria. These people have brought changes in their countries, and we have not seen any foreign intervention We have not seen the massive bloodshed that we saw in Libya, in Syria. So there are possibilities. It is through civilian activism and through politics. But precisely here, this is where the separatists have killed the opposition in Cameroon. And what you are doing without knowing is empowering the party that is in power. We need to remember how we got here, even how we got to reunification. The party that the people who have been running Cameroon since 1960, these are not the people who want a reunification with British Cameroon. That we need to know. The UPC, all these elements who advocated for reunification, they were neutralized by the French. And we were able to maintain our silence at that time and seek reunification. Right at this moment, 1992 came, Frundi won the election, and because they were not prepared enough, they didn't have a chance to continue to secure that true victory. But 1993, we already have separatists coming up in Northwest and Southwest. So the point is, politics is going to get us to federalism. And I could articulate how we intend to do that, starting from activism and then going up to...
I'm going to ask you that question, so hold your thought right there. We have Mr. Ndifo Richard on the line, I think from Florida. Hello, Richard. Hello, Richard. Hello, Richard. Okay, I am not getting him. I'll get back with Richard momentarily. Yes, Dr. Akih, continue.
So the point is that we are going to get back to federalism, and it is through very, very technical organizing. We are conducting a campaign. We need 2 million registered Anglophone voters. We cannot continue fighting for our rights in Northwest and Southwest when the members of parliament from Northwest and Southwest are people who believe in the unitary state. We need to change that in 2025. But before that, we need to make very clear the next presidential election is on the question of federation. We are not talking about the question going to parliament. Federation was taken hostage by a president. We need a president to make the commitment to return to federation. And that we can do by making the next presidential election all about the question of federalism. This we can do if the separatists do not tell our people that you're not part of Cameroon, you should not be concerned with the business of Cameroon at all. That's where we kill ourselves, because they receive their salaries from Yaoundé, the hospitals, they still pay taxes to Yaoundé, and everything is going on. People are celebrating birthdays, people are dancing, right? And some of them are suffering in the bushes. Who are we fooling? We're fooling just ourselves. So the point we're making is that there is a way to get to federalism. Let us start by getting 2 million Anglophones registered, and let us make the next presidential election all about federalism. If the candidate, a strong candidate, doesn't say, I am going to restore federalism, we do not vote at all. We boycott that presidential election, but we must vote our local leaders.
All your thought there, sir. We have a text message from a lady in Ground Zero, that's from Bamenda. The question was directed to Bo Herbert, but as I said earlier on, Bo Herbert declined at last minute to come on this platform to take some very tough questions that were directed to him. That said, Mr. Attoh Moutchia is Ambazonia. I can imagine that he's going to take the questions. He can respond to this title, Cry from a Mother in Ground Zero. She says, before 2016, I'm reading the text, before 2016, in our villages, we had water, we had electricity. In our towns, in Bamenda, Bamenda was rated one of the cleanest cities in the entire Republic of Cameroon. Now, there is no water. Bamenda has become one of the dirtiest. There's an outbreak of cholera. And she further says, how can you take value? What is the added value in kidnapping people for ransom? Finally, she says, the life you people live abroad, do you really think of them suffering in Ground Zero? I know, Mr. Moutchia, you say that you do not endorse kidnappings and so on. But if anyone, whether you or the government, create the atmosphere for kidnapping, How can you say you're not responsible, sir?
Again, I do sympathize, and I feel the pain of the people on the ground who are suffering. We have condemned kidnapping. We know that there are groups, the AGOVC, Choi Yabani's group, who say that it is their policy. They call it collecting taxes, which is nonsense. It is kidnapping for ransom. There are brigands, right? There have been criminals. There was a time when we were growing up, there was a team in Douala. They called them Équipe Nationale. I think there were about 11 or 12 of them who terrorized from southern Cameroons into Yaoundé and Douala, and they were taken out. So these brigands have always been there. And unfortunately, when there is war, there is chaos, there's a breakdown of rule and order, and that is an opportunity for criminals and even some in the diaspora who are making a living, off of this. It is unfortunate. But we try to stay focused and to shorten this war from what the people are suffering. But our people should not forget, which is what I want to tell this mama, that a generation may go by before, like in America, before our children and grandchildren will reap the benefits of what we are suffering for. Cameroon is a failed state. When the United States began, there were 13 states, 13 colonies that came together. There was an attraction to that union that grew that union from 13 to 50 today. And we even see Puerto Rico. They've had a couple of referendums to join. They have not passed, but still, there are a group of people there who want to join the union. There is no attraction in La République. Yes, there was the Izakam thing by the ADF, the Ben Bamenda is dirty, but Cameroon is on a downward spiral into a black hole. It is not only in Bamenda where there is no water. There are sections in Yaoundé, in Douala, where I speak to people that have spent 2 weeks, some 3 weeks, without water. So to blame it only on our struggle is not to understand what we are trying to get away from. Just because we stay with La République does not mean that we would have water for 2 weeks. You're in Cameroon, call the people in Yaoundé. There are parts in Yaoundé where people have thrown food out of the fridge because for a month they've not had lights. I saw on one TV show, somebody was saying they bring lights for 2 hours at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's gone at 4, and they're rationing, right? So it's not by staying there that you will get any more light. We fought when the ADF was trying to get Calm Water and Enyo out of Bamenda, which would have cut water and light. They are still there. The problem is that the country is a failed state, and the war would not have made more light or more water anywhere where you are. That is what we are trying to get away from. Unfortunately, there is going to be a drought as we fight to disentangle ourselves and get back to the kind of government we had between 1954 and 1961, where there was accountability, where the government was responsive to these kinds of sensitivities of the people. Yaoundé does not care. The only thing Gongo cares about now that his godfather is Sinai is how he can keep power. He doesn't care about you any more than we do. So if we don't have water now, let us fight for a situation where we can have water, we can have light, we can have schools, we can have healthcare, we can have tarred roads. Our tolls will be used to maintain our infrastructure, maybe in the next year, in the next 2 years, in the next 5 years. But what we know is that it will not come from Yaoundé.
This is Voices of Africa from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. We have one more time the caller on the line. Hello, Mr. Ndifo Richard.
Hello, Divine. Thank you so much for having me.
Let me, before you ask your question, Mr. Attoh, are you hearing Mr. Ndifo Richard?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go on with your question, sir.
All right, thank you. I will start to make a little comment. I just want to say that I seem to agree with the idea that Dr. Akih is raising to suggest that at this point in the crisis, we need to start employing strategy rather than emotion. The time for the emotional outburst is gone. And right now, we need to employ strategy. As it stands, there are a number of things that give one the question whether we are going to succeed to have an independent Southern Cameroon? And that's where my question lies. So, Mr. Attoh, I want to find out from you. Right now, we have division within the ranks of the separatists, several ranks of several groups of separatists, and we right down on the field, we have several camps of the armed gangs. And then also we have the people on the field, just like the mother who just sent the text message is crying. That is how several people on the ground, on ground zero, they're crying, desperation, because the revolution has turned against them rather than to be for them. So my question is this: without the support of the people on the ground, and without you being united, and without even a single international body supporting your cause, what are you counting on for independence?
Thank you, Mr. Richard Ndifo, for your question. Yes, over to you, Mr. Attoh Moutchia. The question is directed to you. You are the moderator of the Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia International Town Hall.
Well, first, I want to put out the disclaimer that I am here in my personal capacity. I don't want to claim to speak for the town hall here. I'm here in my personal capacity, but yes, that's what I do. I moderate that.
Is
platform.
there anything that you're going to say that will be at variance with people who follow you at the town hall?
Yes, because the town hall is a market square, right? People come to the town hall. We've had Dr. Munzi, we've had Neil John Frundi, we've had different people who come and debate just like this. So
okay, respond to Mr. Ndifo Richard.
Mr. Ndifo Richard's questions. There is a clear leadership, which is what we have told Yaoundé. The leaders of this struggle, of this liberation fight, are the people Yaoundé broke national and international law. I believe the barrister is still with us, to rendition Julius, Ayuk, Tabe, and others back to Cameroon. And we have made it abundantly clear that Yaoundé needs to go talk to them. Yaoundé needs to release them. And by Yaoundé keeping them in there, Yaoundé is feeding the so-called division by opportunists. People in the diaspora I call clowns, because there is no liberation struggle in the history of mankind that has been led and won by people 3,000 miles away. And Mr. Divine Chamikong, permit me, I know it's your platform, I don't want to turn it into a personal fight, but we have opportunists in the diaspora, people who are jobless, who are claiming to be leaders, who have not had a job for 5 years, who are living off this struggle. And the problem is we tell our people on ground zero, do not listen to these people. Get some critical thinking. Hold your leaders to a high standard. Demand of them basic qualifications that makes them leaders. But instead, they are caught up in this emotion, right? Distract them with 6th grade entertainment. And when you hear some of these rabble-rousers on Facebook, the Capo Daniels, the Chris Anus, people flock, and that becomes their narrative and their belief, which is wrong. But again, the clear leaders are the Naira 10 in prison in Kondengi. If Paul Biya releases them and let them come back and take control of this thing, a lot of these opportunists are going to be blown away. When you leave a vacuum, that's what happens. Scammers come in and confuse the whole thing and torpedo it on its head. Unfortunately, some of us are trying to educate our people, to be critical thinkers. And some of the fighters on the ground with guns, unfortunately, are being manipulated. These guys are despondent. That's true. So when somebody sends them $50, $100, go and do this, go and kidnap, remit me Bitcoins, they do it. Unfortunately. So to answer your question, let us push for our leaders to be released from jail, and let the government show good faith in talking to the leaders of this struggle.
Mr. Moutchia, your followers, or people, Ambazonians, or those Southern Cameroonians who disagree with you will say you are in your own world. I mean, why do you think that Ayuk Tabe in prison will still lead, can still lead? That's the argument I'm hearing from Chris Anu and the rest, that he's been corrupted by the regime in Yaoundé. He cannot be relied upon because he's there in jail, he's talking under duress. How do you continue to believe that Mr. Ayuk Tabe is still your leader when he's locked up somewhere in Yaoundé?
He was the leader before he was locked up, right? Chris Anu is one of those opportunists. I just mentioned his name coincidentally. He was locked up. He was leader before he was locked up because he is the leader. He is not locked up because he is compromised. And what I would ask Chris Anu is, tell me how he has lost that leadership position of quality just because he's been locked up. Mandela was locked up. That did not stop him from being the leader. Nalvini in Russia is locked up. That does not stop him from being the leader. Aung San Suu Kyi was locked up. That does not stop her from being the leader in Myanmar. Mugabe was locked up. So to say that because somebody is locked up, you come up and blab on social media that he's compromised. How can you be compromised when you are in prison, your family, your children are going through that emotional torture? They don't know what's happening to you. They can't talk to you. And you tell me he's compromised?
I have your point taken. I have a follow-up question, sir.
Thank you.
If Francis Ngannou or Mike Tyson stood in front of me, and even if he started the fight and I engaged him, I have to be going to commit suicide. Now, when Ambazonians engaged Yaoundé, whether Yaoundé started the fight or not, what was the end game? What still is the end game? Are you hoping to defeat Biya's forces on the battlefield? If not, how are you going to get to independence?
That's a question for Biya to answer if we want to defeat his army on the ground. Let me tell you, after the war in Nigeria, there was a genuine effort by the Nigerian government to rehabilitate, and there was general amnesty. Ojukwu went back to Nigeria. He died in Nigeria. He is buried in Nigeria. He was the leader of the Biafra War, right? If Mike Tyson or Francis Ngannou was in front of you and you knew that their intent was to kill you, you will fight back. If you knew that their intent was to slap you, maybe give you a black eye, you would not resist, you would take it. They are more powerful than you, and you would try to heal your eye and live another day. The intent of Yaoundé is to annihilate us. When you go to Ngabu, I think it was the barrister who was saying that government did not declare this if a president hears that they've killed. Ngabu, what was Ngabu about? Just killing women, children for nothing, pregnant women.
Dr. Ben Akih, when I asked him, Mr. Moutchia, that question, it was to actually bring you on the platform. You've heard repeatedly that Mr. Biya declared war. You're going to maybe respond to that. But however, whether he declared it or not, don't you think, why do you think that Ambazonians or Southern Cameroonians shouldn't stand up and defend themselves? If somebody attacks you, if I come to your house and attack you, well, you should fight back regardless of how muscular I am. Don't I have that right, Dr. Akih? Respond to Mr. Moutchia, sir.
It is a natural reflex to fight back when somebody's hitting on you, but that mischaracterizes the problem of West Cameroon. We have to go back to AAC 1 and AAC 2. And I would like to just point out here that the position I'm defending is that of constitutional democracy. And according to the Constitution, that brought us together. The contract of our reunification, separation is unconstitutional, unitary state is unconstitutional. Now, you do not correct a violation by causing another violation, and especially when power is in the hands of the first violator. So you only make yourself vulnerable. You can only defend yourself against a government that has violated your right by sticking to the law. And that's why the government is afraid of Federalists. Today, we can point to evidence that the government in Yaoundé is very afraid of the coherent and systematic and strategic approach that Federalists are taking. They prefer to fight with the separatists because international community gives them the benefit of doubt. The United Nations gives the power of states to defend their territorial integrity and prevent other states from crossing that borders. And that's why Russia is facing problems now. So let us come to the point that AAC2, by putting the condition that give us federation or we will separate, that was already a tacit declaration of a separatist war. And when you go to the lawyers and the teachers marching in 2016, If you look at the banner of the FACO lawyers, for example, I have a picture of that. They say, give us a federation or total separation. That is already a threat of secession. Now, you can say that as long as it doesn't lead to violence, this is not a war that you're declaring on the government. Now, let us go to Dadi in Manu. When Cho Ayaba was fighting, he had his fighters there. He had a group, even when Ayuk Tabe was not yet arrested. I'm surprised to hear that somebody from West Cameroon claims that Ayuk Tabe is the leader of the people of West Cameroon. By what mechanism was he put as the leader of West Cameroon? We are fighting for the respect of the sovereignty that is invested in the people of Cameroon. Now, when Ayuk Tabe was leading a part of the separatist movement, Cho Ayaba understood rightly, he and Akwanga, you can say that they are wrong, but they understood rightly that the only way to attempt what you were doing was through an armed struggle. So they were inviting the government to meet them at that particular point where they can rightly prosecute their work. There is no diplomatic path for you to get to a member of the UN to come in and violate or support a segment of Cameroon that seeks the separation of part of Cameroon from Cameroon. So what you had there was in Manu, gendarmes were attacked. That's when Biya said that. What our argument is that the government of Cameroon refuses to stop the illegality of the unitary state and looks for an opportunity to dance together with the separatists, because the separatists give legitimacy to the government in Yaoundé. So by Biya reacting after gendarmes were killed in Dadi, this is around November 2017. Now we can go back to the march on 1st October when people came out to declare independence. Our advice to the government was that allow these people to march, and then after that they will see that it does not, marching doesn't give you independence. Marching with a flag doesn't give you independence. So the point here is that the fight that the separatists are fighting is the one that they need. They understand that the only way to make their argument, or if they should ever get independence one day, it is when they defeat Cameroon, or when they cause 1 million, 2 million Anglophones to be killed, and out of sympathy, they are hoping that the UN General Assembly would be able to impose a referendum on Cameroon. But this is misleading, because it's very unlikely for us to get there.
Okay, your point made, sir. I would like Mr. Moutchia to respond.
Well, what Dr. Ben Akih is saying is not very accurate. When it comes to constitutionality or whatever the document was in place, even President Kennedy says it, right? Those who prevent a peaceful revolution make violence inevitable, a violent revolution inevitable. And I'm happy that he pointed to the AACC too, that says federation or separation. So they didn't give us a timeline, and they didn't give Yaoundé a timeline for this ultimatum. So it's easy to say that let us keep fighting for that federation, when in the document he is quoting, he says, oh, we've waited enough. I don't want to be disrespectful to any family, especially families of loved ones, but Southern Cameroonians were killed fighting for federation. The only reason they are bold today is because there is now a more rigid group fighting for separation. If Dr. Ben Akih is honest, people like, I don't want to call their name, people like Mukong, Albert Mukong, may his soul rest in peace, they went to jail fighting for this thing. The SCNC, late Cardinal Toumi, he was trying to bring Southern Cameroonians together. Yaoundé will not let them. I keep asking, what is your pathway? They keep saying it is political. We will bring this, we'll bring that. Since 1972, who have you brought to change what? Yaoundé is a sovereign state. Read the Banjul court thing. Talk to Professor Anyangwe. They've made these arguments in court. They've got a ruling by an African Union court. It cannot be implemented. There is a tyrant in Yaoundé. You guys don't seem to read Jean Sharp. Don't take it from me. Take it from one of the preeminent scholars when it comes to dictatorship and tyranny. You guys do not have a mechanism of implementing federation. You talk about 2025 election. How are you going to change Clement Atangana's decision? Isn't that Kamto who went there with his lawyers and they were presenting a procès verbal that were not signed, and they just tossed them out and put Biya there? You guys have no mechanism of bringing federalism back. It is because there is a far more rigorous fight on Yaounde's hands that you guys are even talking about federalism. I keep saying, where have you been between 1972 and 1922? How many years is that? Is that not 50 years or so?
Okay, you give him an opportunity to respond, sir.
Yes, so this is, in the short term, you might see that separation is giving you the attention that you need, but in the long run, you see that that battle is not easy to win. I am saying that AAC2 derailed the Federalist fight by putting in that condition, because you make it easier for the government to wait for separation and crack down on that. The international community stays quiet. They can only criticize war crimes, but because there are no journalists in Cameroon who have the liberty to expose the details of these war crimes, then these war crimes themselves, they go unpunished. So the point is that whatever the separatist thing that they are doing as a better strategy to get our people the dignity that they want, you are only exposing them to suffering. And in the absence of money from abroad, our fighters, our brothers and sisters who are misled, they start extracting money from the people. How are we going to get the federation? You need to understand that the role of separatists is really to destroy the politica. I am speaking as a disciple of Nde Ntumaza and the UPC. The point I'm making is that Ahijo, Porbia, all of these people, they only even accepted reunification as a way to weaken the UPC. We should know the history. And if we understand that, and we understand that Frundi came very close to defeating this system in 1992, but it did not happen. What are we doing now? For example, our platform is carrying out opinion polls. We are measuring the political atmosphere now in Cameroon. It is not going to be the same. We will know the winner of the next presidential election months before the election. We have the strategies to do so. The question is, will Anglophones register at least 2 million voters and say that you give us federation or we don't vote? Or if one person gives us federation, we are going to vote for this person 80%, 90%. If you can get Anglophones to that position, you will get federalism without all this penalty that we have paid, our people have paid. We must admit, separation sounds like it's a beautiful idea, but you have to pay the price of 20 years of war without any guarantee that you will actually defeat the army of Cameroon.
Can I just ask him a quick question before you bring on Barrister?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Yes, because this 20-year war thing is unfounded, because again, the United States did not fight for 20 years. And
it's a different question.
This is my question to you. A federation cannot be legal without a union treaty. How are you going, because even Dr. Munzu said the Scotland thing, there was a union treaty. How are you going to get, who are you going to get in Yaoundé to sit with you on a table and sign a union treaty?
Okay, let him respond, sir.
This is one of the things that we've been using to mislead our people. The contract of our reunification is the Federal Constitution of 1961. We should not add any other things there. Now, I studied political theory, and I can tell you that there are so many things that states can do wrong and still survive for a very long time.
Okay.
Now, the fact that the United Nations even came into power, and we know the United Nations was really a coalition of powers, colonial powers, right? So there are certain arguments there that you have to figure out. I am a follower of Ntumaza and Umnyobe, and the first argument was that Cameroon was separated without the opinion of Cameroonians. It should be put together without even the opinion of the Cameroonians, so that the bill, but the condition is that the affairs should be governed by the people of Cameroon, and the election should be decided by the people, not by France. That's the fight. And I'm sorry, the separatists are on the same side with Paul Biya and the French, because you're making it difficult for us to fight to make sure that the people of Cameroon are truly sovereign and that they hold their own leaders accountable. It is possible for us to do so. We have to realize that when we distract ourselves that we're fighting for separation, or we're fighting for this, after 1992, the SDF completely lost its power because SCNC became more powerful in West Cameroon. That's the distraction I'm talking about.
Your point taken, sir. I have 2 questions just sent me by text. The first question, Mr. Moutchia, is who is a traitor in this struggle?
Well, a traitor.
I've heard that word thrown around.
Yes, unfortunately, it's thrown around and people don't even understand what it means. You know, they use traitor, they use blacklegs, they use all of those things.
When somebody disagrees with you, is that a traitor?
No. I'm a liberal Democrat. That's why I'm on the panel with people who don't agree with me. I would never call Dr. Akih or Barrister Achu a traitor. I would know why.
It looks like somebody's in the line. Hello, this is Voices of Africa.
Hi.
This is Voices of Africa. You want to take part on the broadcast program? All right. Yeah, so do you believe in this thing of traitor? And it's coming from your camp. When I say your camp, it's coming from the Ambazonia camp. If you disagree with the war, if you're not saying the same thing they're saying, that's treachery. I'm going to say that's textbook definition of fascism.
Yes, it is. It is to a large extent. A traitor is somebody who tells you that they are with you, they are part of your struggle, but they are really working for the other side, right?
Does somebody have follow-up? Does somebody have the room to disagree with the modus operandi of Ambazonian fighters?
Yes. Unfortunately, there are some.
You are on your own on this.
What's that?
You are on your own on this. When you say yes, people have the right to disagree.
I don't think we have ever said that we are looking for 100% Southern Cameroonians to support the cause. We just know that majority, based on the Cardinal Tumi's opinion, based on what late Senator Kemende said, based on the CNN, CDN survey, based on speaking on people, what would the majority of people want? They don't want to deal with La République.
I am thinking that at this point, perhaps Barrister Julius Achu, unfortunately, it's been going on and off. I do understand is connecting live from Cameroon. Do you have a question, Barrister Achu, Julius, for Mr. Attoh Moutchia? Sorry, your audio isn't coming. You have to check it again. Your audio isn't coming. Your audio isn't coming, sir.
Is it okay now? Is it better?
Yes, please go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. You are a Democrat, as you say.
Yeah, liberal Democrat. Yes.
Under what heading? And do you think you have a right to represent people? You live in America, you don't come to Cameroon, maybe you're an American citizen now, but you want to affect the lives of Cameroonians. Under what heading? Because as a Democrat, we know that there must be elections or whatever. But whoever gave you the authority or the audacity to do what you're doing for us. You see, the Anglophone community has a problem of dictatorship. It has an inborn thing of dictatorship. I always say this. Because a people just sit down and decide for everybody. Like AC1, AC2, and I always say, don't think never work. And you see AC1, AC2, AC2,
sorry, I'm going to cut you right there because your audio is very, very bad. The question, I think, in essence, has been recorded. Mr. Attoh Moutchia, what gives you people the right to believe that you speak for Southern Cameroonians? Here's where I say this, whether it's Julius Tabe or Julius Tabe or who's the other one who was dethroned? Who is the IG president who was
Samuel?
Samuel or Ayabacho? Who gives you people the right? What makes you think you speak for everybody? I think that's the question from the barrister. Sorry, sir, I had to cut you because your sound wasn't very clear, but we got the meat of your question. Let's go ahead, sir.
Every Southern Cameroonian, every citizen has the right and should be encouraged to get involved in civic responsibility. The notion that because I am not on Cameroonian territory or on southern Cameroon soil, I have lost my right to speak about my country is ridiculous, to say the least. I could also say that his position is because he is there and he is afraid. I'm taking a position because I believe in the cause and I want to go home, and I don't want. Let me be selfish. I want to go back. I want to go back to southern Cameroons. I've been in this country for, a quarter of a century. Ideally, I should be getting ready to retire. So I have a right to fight for the environment I think would be best for me. Now, if there was nobody on ground zero who aligned with my thought process, I would not be in the struggle, because he is right. Why would I be talking? Who am I working with? But there are tons of people who agree with me, which is the reason why I can engage, because we share the same vision. So it is on the basis of that I speak. On the basis
let me follow up, sir. Let me follow up. You say there are tons of people on ground zero who agree with you. What do you think they agree with? The war as the path to social justice, or social justice? Because we Anglophone Camerooners may disagree with Paul Biya or with the Yaoundé administration, successive administrations, but it necessarily doesn't mean that they agree with war as the pathway to correcting the wrongs.
That's why I have no problem with Federalists doing what they're doing, or unitary people who want to stay with the Republic. I have no problem. I've never ostracized a Federalist, and I would never do that. It's their opinion. But there are some of us who have seen enough to know that this offer for a federal or a fair unitary state has been on the table for 6 decades, and the conditions are only getting worse. We are convinced that we have seen enough, and we've lost enough honorable Southern Cameroonians, that this thing of federalism or unitary, a just society, is only a pipe dream. It will never see the light of day, not with what is happening in that country.
My last question for you, because at some point we will have to wrap up. It's been great debate, and I'm going to call, when you respond to this question, I'm going to call for the other panelists to make their last statements before we go. My last question for you, sir, Mr. Moutchia, and again, I'm very grateful. You never want to shy away from debates. Any good policy crafter takes into account the losses and gains and how the policy affects people. When people sit and declare lockdowns from the diaspora, do those lockdowns, let's be fair, because I speak with people on the ground, do the lockdowns take into consideration what pain the lockdowns inflict on people on the ground?
No.
If they don't,
no, they don't.
What's that policy about? What is it to accomplish?
Short-minded people, poor judgment, miscalculations, appealing to emotions. That's all it is. People who want to give the impression. I mean, you had, for example, let me give you a quick example before you round up. We had the AFCON thing, right? It took place in Limbe. They were there. La République did whatever they want. They competed. 11 February, you say, oh, lockdown. After that, you disappear. Then there's the Mount Fako race. Then, come on, man. It's nonsense to me. It's posturing. It's
so. For 1 minute, let's have your last word.
Well, I want to thank you again, and I want to tell Southern Cameroonians that we do not want war. We do not want blood, but we are dealing with a bloodhound hegemony in Yaoundé that have always pushed us to the limit. We have been a peaceful people. We've always wanted peaceful resolutions. We've always wanted to debate at the table. But because Yaoundé feels that we are scared of blood, they decide to scare us. It's what they did in '92 with when Frundi won the elections, as we've just heard. It's what they did with Kamto. We have now got to take the bull by the horns, and we have to fight for our independence so that we can bequeath to our children. If I die today, which I'm willing to do, if God calls me, I have no regrets, knowing that I can go to my grave leaving behind for my children, not for myself. I'm in my mid-50s, for my children, something they can behold and be proud of and be free.
I have a question here for you, sir. I have a text question for you, sir. I think this is from somebody in South Sudan. He asked, but Mr. Moutchia, I thought Cameroon had independence. When you say restore independence for Southern Cameroons, what are you talking about? That's a question from South Sudan.
Okay. Yes, Southern Cameroons got its independence on the 1st of October 1961, but it was fashioned and languaged in such a way that there was a simultaneous integration with La République into a federal system. La République has used and abused us for 60 years, never respected any terms of that independence that was rolled simultaneously into a federated state. We want to go back to that state of independence without that simultaneous rolling clause that forced us to be independent as long as we attached ourselves to Nigeria or to La République du Cameroun. And I want to tell the South Sudan caller who just called in that we are the only country in the world that was granted independence, and in Africa, with that unbelievable clause. We could not be independent unless we were appended to another country. That in and of itself was wrong.
Your point taken.
We love Chat Night Africa. Keep watching Chat Night Africa.
Thank you, Mr. Attoh Moutchia. We will bring up Dr. Ben Akih for his last word. Here is Dr. Ben Akih. Dr. Ben Akih, I hear this restoration of independence. You don't restore something that did not exist. Is there some logic there?
Really, what they should be saying, to be honest with the people of West Cameroon and former Southern Cameroons, is to say we want to establish independence. Even when we left Nigeria as an entity, we were a UN mandate territory, and that mandate territory ended with the independence with simultaneous reunification. And it was the position of Ntumaza and Umnyobe and the rest that we should reunify before we get our independence. So that is not logical. So the true restorationists are those who are saying that Cameroon is a federation, and right now it's taken hostage by the unitary state. We need to restore federalism. So independence, restoration, that is misleading the people of Cameroon. If they want to establish the independence of a sovereign former Southern Cameroons, that's something new, and they don't have the legal instruments, international legal instruments. And that's why we can testify after 6 years that the international community has not given them that kind of attention. It is obvious then that they have the power to establish independence, not restore independence. They can establish independence by winning a war of independence. And we think that that war is very costly and unlikely to succeed, and therefore should not be attempted.
Thank you. You were responding to my question. You have 1 minute for your last word, sir.
Thank you very much for this invitation, and thank Barrister Achu and also Mr. Attoh for this opportunity to exchange on this subject. We have to be clear about this situation in Northwest and Southwest, that is West Cameroon or former British Southern Cameroons, where people are suffering. Cameroon is our country. Cameroon is a federation, and Cameroon is bound by a contract of reunification, which is the 1961 Federal Constitution. It was not perfect, but it was perfectible, and that perfection remains within the context of a federation. Within that context, separation and unitary state are unconstitutional. If we want to restore that federal structure, we have to understand that trying to do so through separation is very expensive, because it gives the government of Cameroon the right to crack down on our people in the name of territorial integrity. It is therefore very important for us to unite our forces in a political organization and tell the fanatics of the unitary state that Cameroon is a federation, and Cameroon must return to that federal arrangement. The sooner, the better. But this we must do through a political arrangement that does not embrace the violence of war that might scar our region forever.
Thank you, sir.
Chat Night Africa. Keep watching Chat Night Africa.
He's had quite some problems connecting his back, so we will bring him on for his last word. This is Barrister Julius Achu, who is here to defend arguments for a unitary state. Here is Barrister Julius Achu connecting live from Cameroon for his last word. Yes, your last word, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chamukong. I only this opportunity to talk to Akih and Mr. Moutchia, I've never met before. But I would like to say this. When America was fighting for its independence, Americans stayed in their country and fought their fight and made their country be what it is today, which everybody is admiring. If we think that there are things which are wrong in this country and you don't like it, it's better to come back home and let's do that fighting rather than staying from a distance to push people. What you don't understand is that the guys carrying guns in the former West Cameroon are guys who were released from jails. What do you expect from them?
Oh my goodness, your audio isn't good. I wish we'll organize another show and bring you up again on the show. The audio isn't just clear at all. I regrettably have to cut it off. But again, we'll look at the connectivity. There will be another show evolving around this topic, and we will bring you back, sir, from Cameroon. We'll talk along the line to see how we can get this done better, have a better connectivity for you live from Cameroon. I'm going to leave you on this question, but before I do, please, our broadcast now goes on 4 platforms. LinkedIn, it's now live on LinkedIn. It's live on our YouTube broadcast page called Chat Night Africa. It's also live now on our website, www.chatnightafrica.net, and also on our Facebook page, followed by thousands and thousands of people across Africa. I want to thank our producer live in Lagos now, Roger Fool. Without his efforts, we would not do what we are doing on those platforms. Roger Fool is our producer, and Mr. Mumbalingwa is our transmission director in Chicago in the United States. Please, if you love what you do, if you love the content, we believe in the absolute independence of journalism. We believe that for people to make informed decisions or form reasoned opinions, they have to have information from different sources. Let it be clear that this platform was never designed to be a propaganda medium for anybody whatsoever. We need help. We would love you assist us so that we build better, but any assistance with strings attached, in other words, anybody who wants to assist us, first by determining the content on the platform and how we do it, that assistance will be turned down immediately. I thank you for your attention. My name is Divine Chamukong. Go on the YouTube channel now and subscribe so that together we can build a better world. Again, I thank you. I thank you for your love. I thank you to those, everybody who was watching. Here is a fun question for everybody. What was Lagos called before the independence of Nigeria? What was Lagos called before the independence of Nigeria? I leave you with that question. Thank you so much. It's been nice talking to you. And before I go, I want to thank my guest, Dr. Ben Akih, very articulate. We have to thank Mr. Moutchia, also extraordinary. You may disagree with him, but you agree that he articulates his points very well. I want to thank Barrister Julius Achu. We were to have Dr. Valentine's Ambe from Douala, Cameroon, but unfortunately, due to connectivity problems, he could not come on. I want to thank all of you watching Voices of Africa at Chat Nights.
Africa, my continent.
And that's how we leave you. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.
I'm coming back. I'm coming back. I'm coming to get down. I'm coming to dance, We're gonna dance, we're gonna get down, we're gonna party hardy, we're gonna boogie woogie, and when we jam, it's out of sight. This song right here, it's dynamite. I'm ready.